Good morning, Daily Blue viewers. Chris Musto here, you there. I have Brittany Winter to my right. And with me today is Colleen Merlo, Executive Director of the Suffolk County Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Colleen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And she's here today to talk a bit about something that is obviously all over the news. You can't open up a headline without hearing about it. Domestic violence. It's everywhere. It's a plague. And she's here to talk a bit about the coalition in Suffolk County and all the good things that they're doing and some of the events they have upcoming that will help raise awareness for this this blight that we have going on. Colleen, thank you so much for all the work that you do and for coming on today to talk a bit about it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So Colleen, how did you get into it? You wake up one day and you're just executive director, or I'm sure there's a bit of a story behind it. Why don't you give us a little insight?
Sure. I don't think many people choose to go into a lot of fields, helping fields, unless they have a personal connection to it, and that's true for myself as well. I had a friend in high school who got into an unhealthy relationship, and at first, I didn't know what I was looking at, and I just thought this person didn't like me, this guy didn't like me, and why doesn't this guy like me, And then in talking with my fellow friends, and we realized that this person was really pushing my friend and isolating her from everyone. It wasn't just me. But we didn't know that until we started talking to each other. And that's actually, one of the big warning signs is trying to, an abuser oftentimes wants to isolate someone from their friends, from their support, so that they become the center of their universe.
So they kind of create a codependency?
Yeah, it's really about power and control in violent relationships, and that person wants to maintain power and control. And so they take away things that can get in the way of them having that power and control. Unfortunately, in high school, nobody talked to us about domestic violence. I didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what to do. And truly, until it actually got physical, we didn't even know we thought it was weird and unhealthy, but we didn't really know what's going on. So that's one of the things that our organization does, actually, is we go into the high schools and we tell them what the warning signs are and what a healthy relationship is. And our platform is domestic violence, but it really starts with violence at a very basic level, so bullying and all of that as well.
And that's really, I think, a common misconception is, people all too often equate domestic violence or abusive relationships with physical abuse, but there's emotional abuse on levels that doesn't leave physical scars, and it really can't be attributed to, you'd have to really know the signs, and that's really an important thing that you raise awareness about.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the events you have upcoming to kind of help people, get this awareness and, get on board with helping out to solve this problem?
Sure. Well, the big one that I really, really want people to know about, because we're trying to make it a really community-wide event, is Commemoration Day, and that's happening this Thursday, October 9th, from 4 to 6 p.m. at the H. Lee Dennison Building. We're inviting the community to be part of it. And there's going to be survivor stories. Don McPherson of football fame is going to be there. He's done a lot of anti-violence work. So we also want everyone to wear purple that day and tweet Facebook using the hashtag Turn Suffolk Purple.
Wow.
Great.
Very nice, very nice. And what are some of the, what can someone expect when they go there? Is there, what's kind of the program of activities, so to speak? Are there going to be support groups or, anything like that they can kind of take part in?
Sure. We're not having support groups that day, but we certainly have support groups, and you can find out a lot of information about the resources that are available, not only through our organization, the Suffolk County Coalition Against Domestic Violence, but the other domestic violence and related agencies as well. There will be survivor stories. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the warning signs and really just what we as a community can do to stop violence. One of the things that is, difficult is a lot of times people stop listening when you talk about domestic violence because they think, I would never get into that kind of a relationship, or I would never be an abuser. I'm a guy, or I would never be an abuser. But the truth of the matter is, we all need to kind of be aware so that we can intervene and help someone and really create an environment when there isn't.
And, I don't know if you know the answer, but is it typical where you have this stereotype of an abuser and what they kind of look like? Or do they come in all shapes and sizes, all forms, races, and...
Yeah, like what would you look for if you could, like, if you're assuming maybe your friend is kind of in a relationship that's not so healthy?
Well, I want to touch on two things there, because I think you touched on two things. You know, a lot of people think, oh, it's poor people who get into domestic violence relationships, and certainly financial stress, any kind of stress can exacerbate something that's already there,
Sure.
but it's not a cause. And I think we see this now with the NFL and
Right.
the Ray Rice case. This person has a lot of wealth, a lot of resources, and still there's domestic violence in that relationship. But I think, you know, there's not a typical abuser, just as there's not a typical victim.
Right.
You know, people tend to be very charismatic if they're an abuser. It's some of the things, you know, when you first get into a relationship that you think are endearing, oh, you know, she or he is calling me every 5 minutes and wants to know where I'm going and is so attentive and shows up at work and just brings me flowers, right? And those are nice things.
Controlling.
Right.
But, it can take the next step and be very controlling. You know, is the person coming because they want to be supportive of you, or are they
Or are
there
they
because
investigating me constantly? Right.
Wow.
Right.
And what if you see these signs? What is something that someone, for like an outsider, could do if it's your friend? Is it something that you should bring up to her or him, or call someone?
I would bring it up to the person. So, you know, and domestic violence and intimate partner violence can really happen for, you know, both men and women can be victims of domestic violence. So we often think of women as victims, but we do serve men as well. It's not as popular. I think there's a lot of stigma even around that for
Sure.
men. But I think if you're worried about someone, talk to them and say, you know, hey, I've noticed some things. I've noticed that you haven't been hanging out with your friends. Is there something going on? You know, maybe you want to talk to someone and give them a hotline number,
Sure.
you know.
Well, there you have it, folks. So you can hear all about the education on this this wild and unfortunately very popular topic at the H. Lee Dennison Building this Thursday the 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. Remember to wear your purple and support this event. Come out and share in the day and share in some of the education and raising awareness on what we all need to take our part and action in. Thank you so much again, Colleen, for joining us today and helping us out and coming on and talking about this topic. And thank you all for joining us and tuning in.